So here you have the earnings per share and the stock prices. Conglomerates improved their earnings per share by acquiring other companies. Inflated expectations allowed them to improve their earnings performance, but eventually reality could not keep up with expectations. After a twilight period, the price trend was reversed. All the problems that had been swept under the carpet surfaced and earnings collapsed. As the president of one of the conglomerates, Ogden Corporation, told me at the time, I have no audience to play to. This is a model of the conglomerate bubble. The charts of actual conglomerates, like Ogden Corporation, closely resemble this chart. Bubbles that conform to this pattern go through distinct stages. There is the inception, then a period of acceleration, reinforced by successful tests when the price declines, but the trend reinforces, is strong enough to reinforce itself. Then a twilight period ensues, and a reversal point or climax is reached, followed by an acceleration on the downside, culminating in a financial crisis. The length and strength of each stage is unpredictable, but there is an internal logic in the sequence of stages. So the sequence is predictable, but even that can be terminated by government intervention or some other form of negative feedback. In the case of the conglomerate boom, it was the defeat of Leesco in its attempt to acquire manufacturers Hanover Trust that constituted the climax or reversal point. Typically, bubbles have an asymmetric shape. The boom is long and drawn out, slow to start. It accelerates gradually until it flattens out during the twilight period. The bust is short and steep because it's reinforced by the forced liquidation of unsound positions. Disillusionment turns into panic, reaching its climax in a financial crisis. The simplest case is a real estate boom. The trend that precipitates it is that credit becomes cheaper and more easily available. The misconception is that the value of the collateral is independent of the availability of credit. As a matter of fact, the relationship between the availability of credit and the value of the collateral is reflexive. When credit becomes cheaper and more easily available, activity picks up and real estate values rise. There are fewer defaults, credit performance improves, and lending standards are relaxed. So at the height of the boom, the amount of credit involved is at its maximum, and a reversal precipitates forced liquidation, depressing real estate prices. Yet, this misconception continues to recur in various guises. For instance, the international banking crisis of 1982 revolved around sovereign debt, where no collateral is involved. The creditworthiness of the sovereign borrowers was measured by various debt ratios, like debt to GDP and debt service to exports. These ratios were considered objective criteria, while in fact they were reflexive. When the recycling of petrodollars in the 1970s increased the flow of credit to countries like Brazil, their debt ratios improved encouraging further inflows and starting a bubble. Not all bubbles involve the extension of credit. Some are based on equity leveraging. The best examples are the conglomerate boom of the 1960s and the internet bubble of the late 1990s. When Alan Greenspan spoke about irrational exuberance in 1996, it misrepresented bubbles. When I see a bubble forming, I rush in to buy, adding fuel to the fire. That's not irrational. And that's why we need regulators to counteract the market when a bubble is threatening to grow too big, because we can't rely on market participants, however well-informed and rational they are. Bubbles are not the only form in which reflexivity manifests itself. They are only the most dramatic and the most directly opposed to the efficient market hypothesis. Therefore, they deserve special attention. But reflexivity can take many other forms. In currency markets, for instance, the upside and downside are symmetrical, so that there is no sign of an asymmetry between boom and bust. But there is no sign of equilibrium either. Freely floating exchange rates tend to move in large, multi-year waves. And the most important and most interesting reflexive interaction takes place between the financial authorities and financial markets. Because markets don't tend towards equilibrium, they are prone to produce periodic crises. Financial crises lead to regulatory reforms. That's how central banking and the regulation of financial markets have evolved. Both the financial authorities and market participants act on the basis of imperfect understanding, and that makes the interaction between them reflexive and unpredictable. While bubbles only occur intermittently, the interplay between authorities and markets is an ongoing process. Misunderstandings by either side usually stay within reasonable bounds because market reactions provide useful feedback to the authorities, allowing them to correct their mistakes. But occasionally, the mistakes prove to be self-validating, setting in motion vicious or virtuous circles. Such feedback loops resemble bubbles in the sense that they are initially self-reinforcing, but eventually self-defeating. But otherwise, they take quite a different shape.